Welcome back to the messy garage. I've been out here tinkering with stuff. The wind's been blowing, so I figured it'd be a good time to just play around with things. I've got a couple arrows here that still need to be fletched. I've got 4 of them. And I bought some new vanes I want to try. So I've got some boning heat vanes. So I'm going to try those against the boning ice vanes that I've got fletched up on these other arrows. But I figured before I do that, I could probably do a little follow-up on my bend test video. So for those of you that have watched that, you know what this thing's for and kind of how I've used it. But I've come up with something that I think might improve it just a little bit, and I want to do another demonstration that shows how effective it could be. Stick around.
I went over a decade without shooting my bow, so when I came back to archery, naturally I turned to YouTube to teach me a few things. These days I try to get out and shoot as much as possible, and I figure I might as well turn on my camera while I'm there. Maybe while I'm tinkering with stuff, someone else will pick up something that'll help them out.
All right, just a brief review. The idea behind bend testing is that it takes the guesswork out of nock tuning, because we're trying to figure out which way the arrow wants to bend so that we can make a conscious decision as to which way that's going to come out of the bow, instead of just kind of guessing like you do with nock tuning. Now, when an arrow comes out of a bow, because of the weight in the front and the inertia, the arrow is going to bend as it comes out. And depending on how it's oriented, because arrows have a stiff and weak side, and they typically bend towards the weak side. So the idea with using this bar clamp, or you can use anything else that can compress the arrow a little bit, is that you can figure out which way that arrow wants to bend and then make a conscious decision on where you want that oriented. I've played around with it a little bit. What I found most effective is if you have it bending down when it comes out of the bow. What I mean by that is when I knock this in the arrow or in the bow, when it shoots, because of the flex on it, it's going to bend the arrow, and I orient it down. Does that make sense? So as it comes out of the bow, it wants to bend down as it recovers in flight. And by using the bar clamp, I can figure out which way all my arrows want to bend, and I orient them all the same. It's essentially doing the same thing as nock tuning. It just takes all the guesswork out of it. So previously what I've done here is I take my arrow, I take the nock out of this end, and I just put in an insert that's got a point on it. Okay, nothing special. These ones happen to have glue-in target points, but otherwise you'd probably have your screw-in point on this side. On the clamp, I've got 2 little pinholes drilled, so that way these points have something to go into, and that way they can kind of move freely, and so even if there's a little wobble in these, it's still pushing the arrow straight together. So all I do is I stick those in the pinholes. Let me try that again. I stick that in the pinhole. And I'm just putting a little bit of pressure on the arrow. We're not trying to bend it in half. This is not like the torture test that Gold Tip does. And we're just bending it a little bit to see which way it goes. And I've done this with all my arrows, and I've done this with probably the last 4 or 5 dozen that I've bought and built. And it's worked pretty well. It's been very consistent for me. So on my previous video, I had a viewer make a comment that he takes the clamp and he does it vertical so that there's no pressure or gravity pulling on the shaft. And I initially dismissed that thought, thinking, oh, it doesn't really make that big of a difference. I've come to a conclusion, though. I think it makes a difference. So in my effort to try to replicate that, I just figured, you know what? This has got a little lip right here on the freezer. I can probably just hang this right here. It's not perfectly vertical, but it's pretty close. And as I've tested this on a couple arrows, it's made a difference. My indicator, or my mark, is just slightly different on most of my arrows. What we're going to do here is we're going to go in and we're going to mark these arrows together and then go shoot them and see if this works. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to take these 2 shafts and I'm going to mark them and then we're going to go shoot them. Now, if you look at this one up close, you can see I've got a few different marks on there as I've been playing and testing this, because I want to be able to demonstrate this properly. So this was the original shaft. You can see I've got a little BS written on there. This is the original shaft I chose to be the bear shaft. So when I bought this dozen set of arrows, after I did the initial flex test on them, I just grabbed one at random and designated it the bear shaft. And that's what this shaft is. So let's go flex this one and figure out where it's bending, and we'll make a new clean mark on there so that we're not getting confused by all these extra marks. All right, so first up, we're going to drop this in here. I'm going to make sure it's in the pinholes. And the idea here is it should be able to spin freely in here. There's no specific position to start. You're just going to put it somewhere and let it go. And you're just going to add a little pressure and see which way it wants to bend. In this case, it's kind of bending in towards the bar. Okay, I'm going to take note of roughly where that's at. I'm kind of looking at the label down here. I don't know if you guys can see that very well. I'm looking at the label to kind of see roughly what that oriented to. Turn that back up just a little bit so you guys can see it. So now I'm going to turn this direction and see which way it goes again. Well, it bent that way the first time I've turned it 90. It probably is going to bend towards me at this point. Again, you're going to release all the pressure so there's nothing holding on to it. And then come back and bend it again. And it's bending towards me. Okay, that makes sense. So if I spin that 180 degrees, like that, so that label's over here, what I was looking at, I can then put a little pressure on it, and it's probably going to bend to the left. A little bit, yep. Again, guys, this isn't a perfect science. I've never claimed that it is. I just think this is a simpler way to get guys started. This is not the end-all, be-all of tuning. This just gets everything headed the right direction. So as I've done that a few times, it's bending in relation to the label the exact same way every time. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to turn this right here to about right there. And we're going to flex it, and it bends towards the clamp. Now, if you look really close, there's actually a mark up here, because obviously I've tested this. I'm not just making this up as I go. So there's a mark up here. So we're going to put a fresh Sharpie mark on here in gold so that we know this is which way this is wanting to bend. I'm going to make it a big one so we can see it. All right, she's marked. So now that we got this marked, we can see our new fresh mark there. It's nice and bright. This is the designated bear shaft. I'm going to put my Nock back in this. I'm going to orient it like that, so when I stick it in the arrow or in the bow with that up, it wants to bend down as it comes out of the bow. This is what I tune my bow to. I'm going to take this arrow to the bow, and this is what I'm going to tune the arrow or tune the bow until it shoots a bullet hole with this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this other arrow that I've grabbed out of the other three that still need to be fletched up. And same thing, pull the Nock. We're going to drop that in there, and we're going to set it up and do the same test on it. All right, so same thing on this one. I'm going to look around here. I can see, you can see I've definitely got some other marks if you look close. Again, I've been playing with this, trying to make sure this actually works so that I'm not just making this stuff up. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out where this thing wants to bend, okay? So we're just going to look at the label. We're going to just give it a little twist here to begin with and just see which way it goes. Lucked out, it went back in again. So that's right here along this part of the label where it says 100% carbon. Good to know. I'm going to release all the pressure. I'm going to spin it this direction and see which way it goes. In theory, it should go to the left. There it goes. Okay, that makes sense. We're going to spin it this way. So I've got it this way. It should bend towards me at this point. There we go. So it's consistently bending the same direction, even when I'm spinning it in the clamp. Now, the reason I think that this is effective here in being vertical is that there is no gravity. I had a few arrows that when it was horizontal, it constantly always bent the same direction no matter which way I spun it. So I just assumed those arrows didn't care. I'm thinking this makes a difference. I really do. So let's just check that one more time. So we had the 100% carbon. So right there, it should bend into the clamp, which is what I'm looking for. Into the clamp. There we go. So we're going to take our gold marker. That's the black one. And we are going to make a fresh mark on this arrow. So here we go. All right. We'll get a Nock put in this one. Let's go get the target and paper tuner set up. And we're going to shoot these through paper and see what happens. All right, so here's the setup in the garage. I've built a little PVC stand that just kind of hangs on my garage rails. Got the matrix set up. It takes all the abuse. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to shoot the designated bear shaft that I've tuned my bow to a couple times here to demonstrate that it's tuned to that arrow. I'm then going to take the arrow that you and I worked through together, and I'm going to shoot it with the Nock, or with the arrow twisted in the different orientations, straight up, left, down, and right, to see if there's a difference on the tears. Now, the thing we need to point out here is that this requires you to have some decent shooting form. I'm not a great archer. I'm still learning. I'm still learning a lot. So let me demonstrate what I'm talking about, because I spent a few days in the garage working on this, trying to come up with a way to demonstrate this so that it would make sense. And part of that ended up in me shooting a lot of paper. And I mean a lot and a lot and a lot. And I just kept shooting and shooting. And ultimately, what was happening is I would finally get it to think, okay, this is working. I can prove it. It makes sense. And then I'd get something way crazy. Well, turns out what it is was my grip pressure. I was all over the place, and I had to consciously work on my grip pressure better to get it to shoot well so that I can demonstrate this properly. So that's important. Good technique. If you don't have it, none of this works. You got to work on it. All right, so we're going to start with this one. This was the designated bear shaft. We're going to put a couple through paper and just make sure that it's actually shooting bullet holes. I haven't really shot this morning, so we'll see how well my grip pressure is doing, because I was struggling the last couple days till I figured it out. So here we go. First one for bear shaft that I tuned the bow to. Terrible shot. Terrible. Let me go get that. There we go. That one looked good. There we go. We got two pretty clean bear shafts. So this is what the bow's tuned to. We can satisfactorily say I think I've demonstrated that. That's me. Don't blame. Well, you have to blame me for that one. We're tuned. All right, so that was the designated bear shaft. So we are going to swap arrows, and we're going to shoot the other. I'm just going to set this one down over here so I don't get them mixed up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shoot the other one. So this is the one we made the great big Sharpie mark on. We can see that gold Sharpie mark. And we're going to start with that up, and then we're going to shoot it, and I'm going to twist it 90 degrees, and we're going to see what it looks like when it's done. Not the cleanest hole. I bet I can do better than that. That one looks better. All right. So again, I can blame that one on me. That one, pretty clean hole altogether. So I think we're going to go with that. And moving on. All right, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to take this, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Did you guys see that? And we are going to shoot it at that left side of the X. Definitely got a little bit of a tear. Some of that might have been me, no doubt, but that's definitely worse than these ones. And actually, it's backwards. It tore the other direction from that one. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take it again. I'm going to clip it onto the arrow. Or sorry, clip it onto the string. I'm going to turn it 90 degrees. So now it's pointing straight down. We're going to shoot it through the bottom. And again, got a little bit of a tear. It kind of tore the same direction as that one. All right, we're going to spin this one more time. So now we're going to put it so it's 90 degrees to the right. Ooh, that actually shot pretty clean that way. And now to prove that this isn't just a fluke, we're going to put it back to its normal orientation. So up. And we're going to shoot a few to make sure that this is shooting clean in this orientation. Well, that was terrible. There we go. All right, what do we think? So we took the bear shaft. Ben tested it. We shot bullet holes. We demonstrated to do that. That's what the bow is tuned to. We then took a separate shaft, did the same flex test, bullet hole. We oriented it. It tore. Actually shot a bullet hole there too. And then we put it back to normal orientation and demonstrated that it will shoot bullet hole after bullet hole after bullet hole. So what does this mean? In reality, it doesn't mean anything if you don't want to try it, okay? I'm not saying this is how you have to tune your bow. What I'm getting at is that this is a way for more normal archers. If you're a target archer or you're someone who makes a living shooting your bow, this is not for you. There are probably more effective methods, but for guys like me, going through the process of the full Nock tune, I don't think I'm a good enough archer for that to be effective. This is effective, and it's easy. And it gets all my stuff headed the right direction. That's the whole point of this, is for the average guys that are shooting basic arrows. I'm not shooting match grade arrows. I'm not shooting the best there is on the market. I am shooting gold tip Warriors. This is the cheapest arrow they offer right now. That's what I'm shooting out of this, okay? These arrows are 6,000 straightness. They're not match grade arrows. So to try to get them just to shoot a little bit better, this technique works. It's effective. And I hope you guys try it. Put it to work. I've had lots of guys comment on my videos, both on Instagram and YouTube, that have tried it with great success. You can vary this method. You don't have to do it exactly the way I do it, but this is just kind of the idea that there's a little something here. Also, again, want to state, I didn't make this up. This wasn't me. I saw someone else doing this and tried it out, and I was like, wow, that's really effective. So I've just kind of put it to the work, and I've kind of tested it a few different ways, and I thought this would be a great explanation. This would be a great demonstration on how this works. I could probably grab those other two arrows and go through the same process and get very similar results. Again, it's not perfect. It depends on you being a good shot, because even my first shot out of the bow, I was torquing it. And I've got lots and lots of documentation of me torquing the crap out of my bow, trying to figure out why is this thing not shooting like it's supposed to. It's me, let's be honest. So guys, I appreciate you coming along. Questions, comments, drop them down in the comment section. Let's talk about it. If you guys want some more input, or if you're trying it and it's not working, I don't know. Let's talk about it. Thanks for coming along. I'll post the original video here so that you guys can see it if you haven't, and we'll go from there. Thanks for coming along.